I had like quite not high expectations for the whole Kaguya like little specials, like little filler stuff that we was going to be getting, because I thought this would be a really good chance to like actually give like some real good character to Kaguya, that we'd actually be able to find out a lot more interesting stuff for her, you know, like blend her out, like stuff that we wasn't able to find out in the manga. Well, Kaguya was barely in the fucking episode, like she was barely in there. And from what we saw, and seen from the start of the episode, it's like, oh, alright then, like, we're gonna get, like, this episode then about Hagaroma and Hamura then instead, which, you know, we might, like, go into a little bit deeper then, and I'm very sad to say this, but even, Hagaroma and Hamura, they're not actually that interesting of characters. The only real thing that you know about the brothers is that, like, you know, like Hagaroma is the slightly older one of the twin brothers. That is like, oh, he's the more kind of peaceful, solving solution kind of guy. And then with Hamura, like, although he's very green and kind of same way, very nice guy, like, same thing with, like, Hagaroma, he's a little bit more cocky, and he's the one that has, like, the Byakugan out of the group, and it's like, oh, it was kind of very weird as, like, they didn't exactly explain it. That's like, okay, so she used, like, you know, the whole, like, infinite Tsukuyomi in the sky, and I was wondering, like, why? Like, are there people still around here? Like, why did she just end up forgetting them? And then we finally kind of gave, like, some more information. It was like, instead of raising her children on her own, she was like, I'm going to keep a few of you people on here, you know, have my sons and all that, kind of live in this life. And however, though, they keep always having to go to this, like, tree ritual, which was, like, a little bit suspicious, so, like, keep feeding to the tree, and they ended up meeting, like, a very tiny young version of Ganamura. I was like, okay, so it's like that very old frog that used to tell us about, like, the prophecy. I was like, oh, that's a kind of cool thing that we get to see, like out of everything. It's like, oh, this old frog, see what it was like completely, like, giant eons and shit ago, like, they would do this. Although they have noticed, like, with, like, going into it, it's like, oh, your mother is not the kind of person that you think you are. And I'm like, not what you think you are. She barely fucking does anything apart from look at the sky and then finding out, oh, by the way, like, all those times she disappeared, she was just taking out people that were spreading words about it because of all the other villages and, like, going on. And then even out to the point where, like, one of their, like, actual friends, like, Howie was getting taken away, they were still like, oh, we're not going to do this, you know, we're not going to do anything about it. And then end up going to the tree and finding out, oh, they're actually, like, this is what she was using for. She was using them all to, like, feed off the tree and keep feeding it, and then getting the information that is like, this is what's happening. And actually at this point, Hagaroma actually activating the Sharingan in his eyes. I think the problem with this is that there wasn't a lot of build up to, like, mini events. You kind of knew what exactly was going on from the start. And the characters that you were following throughout both the, like, Hagaroma and Hamura, they didn't really feel like anything special at all to go on. Like, I wasn't expecting in the first episode, oh, this amazing character them and all this, like, get some very interesting stuff, but there's something that I was supposed to really be focused on Kaguya, and then also, well, like, given, like, a huge time skip going back to seeing the kids, like, now as they're teenagers, and then immediately from what we got, another time skip of some sorts, like, because we get to see that Hamura, like, when we got to see him, like, back as, like, a teen, like, he had, like, super long hair then. I was like, okay, so how long have they actually been, like, training for? And then with the next episode, like, he's got a goatee. I was like, okay, so, like, there's some weird kind of, like where it seems like there's, like, doing little time skips here and there, and it's, like, definitely what we saw with, like reactions saying, no, you didn't, Hamura, don't lie to me right now, like, you gotta tell me fucking everything about this and that. You guys have got to stop your, like, mother, because Kaguya, she's gonna fuck up the whole world with this, like, all this stuff. So, like, Hagaroma's learning, like, Sage Mode, and Hamura's kind of doing, like, what he does. Like, the only difference real to him that he's just, like, had longer hair and he had a sword instead. So, I don't know, there was something, like, I think it was the combination of the pacing, terrible fucking art at points. There was really, like, characters were really off model a lot of the points of this episode. Like, the only one that didn't look off point at all was probably, I'd like to say, Kaguya, like, in everything. But it's like, from what we saw of, like Kaguya, like, for, like, building up more on this villain, they're really not giving you too much at all to, like, not even care about the villain, but to, like, think about too much of her actions, because what she's doing is if she's doing anything, it's behind scenes. And if, like, even after that, it's like she doesn't spend time with her sons, and she doesn't spend a lot of time on camera. So it's the same amount of treatment that we got in the manga, where we didn't get learn a lot about Kaguya, apart from that she was a crazy bitch. Like, the difference between her and Madara is that Madara, we knew a lot about him, like, and either when he got resurrected, even before that, even we didn't like added all the stuff that we knew about like Madara Uchiha before that point, when he actually came back, he started giving you his own reasons, his own stuff. He actually started like talking about it. It was like, you could already understand that in a couple of episodes that he was in the anime, and I feel like Kaguya, like, she's kind of failing at that, and I definitely think, like, they got the completely wrong idea of, like, what they wanted to do with Kaguya in the way that they're just using Kaguya and excuse, like, oh, we're just going to give her a little bit more info about, like, how exactly everything went down, when they should be focusing on making Kaguya a better character than what she was in the manga. You know, give her more dialogue, give her more, like, to understand what her character is like. That's what I felt like this episode really failed at, and the combination of just bad art at points, and then a combination of like Hagaroma and Hamura, they really wasn't that interesting the characters to actually like hang around in this episode. Like, they kind of felt very just flat and, honestly, which is the sad thing to say, boring. You never want to say that in an episode, because as a form of entertainment, that is the last thing you ever want to see in an episode or to a character themselves. Gamamura added a little bit of light comedy to this show, and he was the one that was kind of the plot dump to everything, so I did like those bits, and there was some nice moments there, but definitely a real issue with pacing, where it's just like, it felt slow the entire episode, and then just out of nowhere, oh, Sharingan, oh, like the invasion, oh, they're suddenly like changing and changing. I was like, whoa, like, just, it felt like they maybe had plans to take this a little bit longer, but then it was like, no, we've got to make this really quick, we have to make this really short, end it now, end it quick, like that, we'll get back to the cat. So that's obviously my own opinion on the episode. I didn't actually like it too much. I'm probably going to give the episode around about a 4.5 to like a 5. I actually wasn't impressed too much by that, which is a shame, because I actually did like the first episode. Although it had a kind of bit of slow pacing to start with the filler at the start there, I think definitely the second half of like the episode with the last week's episode was really good. But this one, like, I didn't get that much enjoyment out of it, and that's a real shame. So I'm hoping that next week it does improve. But that's just my personal opinion. If you liked it, that's perfectly fine. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Did you have issues with this episode of Shippuden? Did you really enjoy this one? Do you think this guy has a good in-depth about Hagaroma and Hamura? Personally, that in me, and I think the whole point of, like, maybe this should have been focusing a little bit more on Kaguya, and I thought we'd be getting a little bit more on her, but a partner, I guess, like, in the end of the day, all that she wants to do, from what we found out, is that she just wants to be E.T. and go home. Keeps pointing at the tree and just keep making a giant SOS system. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure AA will get like catch your services sometime soon. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys next time.